Night drives have always carried with them a peculiar kind of tension. The silence of the empty roads, the endless stretch of black sky overhead, and the isolation that makes every sound seem louder, every shadow seem alive. And while most late-night journeys pass uneventfully, there are some that remain etched in memory for all the wrong reasons. Like the story of Adrian, a college student returning home after visiting friends, who found himself driving through a deserted stretch of highway in Nevada, where the road cut through miles of barren desert, the radio fading into static until there was nothing but the hum of his engine and the occasional whisper of wind against the car. And as he drove deeper into the emptiness, his headlights illuminated something on the shoulder, what appeared to be a man walking, his posture stiff, his clothes ragged and torn. And though Adrian considered stopping, something about the man's strange jerky movements unsettled him. So he drove past slowly, his eyes fixed on the figure. And to his horror, as soon as the beams of his headlights swept fully over him, the man's head snapped up with an unnatural speed, revealing a pale face smeared with dirt and a gaping grin that stretched too wide. And Adrian floored the accelerator, but when he checked his rearview mirror seconds later, the figure was no longer on the roadside. He was standing in the middle of the lane, directly behind the car, perfectly still and staring. And though Adrian never saw him again, for years afterward he swore that every time he drove alone at night, he could feel eyes watching him from the darkness just beyond the headlights. Another chilling story came from a young woman named Sarah, who was driving back from her night shift at a diner in rural Kentucky. Taking winding country roads with dense forest on either side, the kind of roads where even the moonlight seemed swallowed whole by the trees, and as she rounded a sharp bend, she nearly screamed when her headlights caught a figure standing directly in the middle of the road, not moving, forcing her to slam on the brakes so hard the tires screeched and the car stopped only feet away from what appeared to be a young girl no older than 12. Dressed in a white nightgown that fluttered in the breeze, though the air was completely still, and Sarah's first instinct was to leap out and help. But when she opened her door, the girl turned her head slowly, unnaturally, almost like a doll being twisted, and her eyes glowed faintly in the beam of the headlights, dark and hollow. And before Sarah could say a word, the girl vanished, not running, not stepping aside, but disappearing as though the air swallowed her whole, leaving nothing but the rustle of leaves, and Sarah drove home shaking, only to later learn that a child had died on that very bend decades earlier in a car accident, and locals believed her spirit still haunted the road, luring drivers into swerving, and Sarah never again took that shortcut, choosing instead to drive an extra 20 miles to avoid that cursed stretch. The third story belongs to a man named Leonard, who worked as a traveling salesman, often driving long distances between small towns. And one stormy night in Texas, while lightning split the sky in jagged white flashes, his car sputtered and nearly died on a lonely 2-lane road surrounded by fields. The rain pounding so hard he could barely see past his wipers, and as he pulled over to catch his breath, he noticed headlights in his rearview mirror. Another car approaching slowly, its lights growing brighter until it stopped a few yards behind him. And though relieved at the thought of help, Leonard grew uneasy when the car simply sat there idling, its silhouette barely visible through the rain. And after several minutes, he stepped out to wave. But the car's engine revved loudly before its headlights suddenly cut off, plunging the road into darkness. And when the next lightning flash lit up the fields, the car was gone, no sound, no tire marks, nothing, and shivering. Leonard scrambled back into his vehicle, praying it would start, and to his luck it did. But as he drove away shaking with fear, he realized something worse. The passenger seat beside him was soaking wet, as though someone dripping with rainwater had been sitting silently inside the car with him. And he drove the rest of the night with his eyes locked forward, too terrified to even glance at the seat. And he swore later that he heard the faint sound of wet breathing until dawn finally broke. These 3 stories, Adrian's encounter with the grinning roadside man, Sarah's brush with the vanishing child on the country bend, and Leonard's storm-soaked passenger capture the eerie truth of night drives, that the darkness beyond your headlights hides more than just trees and empty fields, that sometimes the road itself holds secrets of spirits, stalkers, and things not meant to be explained. And while the engine hum and radio static may comfort most drivers into thinking they are alone, these chilling accounts serve as reminders that on a night drive, especially in the most isolated places, you may not be as alone as you believe, and the unknown may be watching, waiting, or even riding along beside you unseen.